Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more VGCommz Hitman Blood Money. This is episode 3, and unlike the previous episode, we're only doing one mission this time. Yes, going back to episode 1 standards. And it's not because this one is particularly long, but the fact that this one and the next one just, the lengths just sort of conflict with one another, so, the other one is kind of short, but it's not short enough to where I think I could put it into this one. Nevertheless, I think things should still be quite entertaining as we continue along with our story here of this news reporter trying to get the dirty deeds, as it were, on what the heck is going on with this former FBI agent. And one thing that I do like about this game is that it keeps its story to the background, essentially. Like, if you're to skip through all the cutscenes and just play the missions as is, you wouldn't really miss anything until, the final 2 missions, really? Maybe the final 3, but aside from that, you can go through most of this game without knowing its story, really, and I think that's kind of the strengths of the Hitman series, is the fact that you don't really need to get invested in the story to enjoy the game. I mean, it helps, it definitely enhances the experience, but not getting all that involved in the story, if that's not what you're into, then, this is a good game for that. And I think it definitely helps. Because I remember first going through this, not getting into the story. It took me a good 2 or 3 times until I actually got invested in these story and characters. But then again, to be fair, I was a teenager at the time. So, characters really weren't at the forefront of my mind. And one thing I do like is that we're seeing all these different ways that 47 is receiving these messages for these missions. And it really does sometimes border on the ridiculous a little bit, I guess, but at the same time, it is kind of fun. It really does make it feel like a secret agent. Secret agent, man, I'm going to stop. Because, admittingly, my singing is not the best in the world. So this next one, this mission, I have to admit, there were 2 points where I had to do a little bit of editing. The first one is due to the fact that my controller was acting up. And the second edit point where you'll see is just for the sake of saving time, because I forgot that I was wearing a disguise at the time. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but I did. And for that, I feel really, really dumb. Nevertheless, we're going to be meeting kind of a recurring character in this series, Agent Smith. And he is an interesting one because the whole running gag with Agent Smith is that we're constantly rescuing him for missions that were kind of above his pay grade, so to speak. His skill level is sort of in the middle, and the missions that he keeps signing up for are kind of in the higher tier. I want to say top tier, but in the higher tier of skill required. But he, I guess, doesn't really mind those things. Anyways, we're getting some new upgrades. I like these. They're quite rad, I think. It really isn't worth it to get any of the Kevlar vests until you get the final one, because it's only the final one that 47 actually keeps on his body when he changes disguises. I'm not sure why he decides to just throw away the Kevlar vest when he changes disguises. Is that some sort of rule? Oh no, you don't get to keep the Kevlar vest to your final upgrade. And he's just fine. No. Nevertheless, welcome to a bit of a retreat, as it were. This is one of those rehab facilities, and their whole thing is they will not let you out unless you're either dead or they believe that you are clear of whatever mental illness or addiction or whatever that you're in there for. I think it's an addiction thing. Maybe, I don't know. It shows how much attention I pay to these sort of events. But then again, all that stuff, not all that important in the grand scheme of all of the things. And we're also going to see a bit of picture-in-picture here. That's another feature of this game. So that way you can see different events that are happening that might be important to you as important to you as the player, so that way hey, this event is happening. Keep that in mind for later on, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to actually really show off any of this stuff, but maybe a more advanced player would, or someone who actually cares to do so. I'm just going through these missions in one fell swoop as fast as I can, really. Not really worried 100% about efficiency. The only mission where I really, really, really want to get Silent Assassin on is the third to last mission. That's the one where I almost always get that on there because that's the actual first mission where I got the routines of every person down to a T, just like that. I know the routines of everyone, and I know the timing of every footstep of every NPC that moves around in that level. That is how many times I replayed that as a teenager. I must have played that level no less than 12 times in a row at one point because I enjoyed that level to such a high degree for some reason. There's just something about that level structure that really it just grabbed me. The themes of it, the aesthetic of it, and I cannot wait to get to it. I wish I could just play that level like 15 times for this playthrough. In fact, technically I could. I mean, there's no rule on YouTube that says you cannot do a walkthrough or playthrough, I guess in this instance, this way. Your playthrough must consist of parts A, B, C, D, and E in this order. But, I guess for the sake of convenience, just do it that way. And this is really one of the levels that my opinion of it is kind of in the middle. And it's actually raised over the years because I remember playing this level the first few times being really annoyed at it because for some reason I did not notice that I could pick the lock over at the side of the building. I would always go through the front door, and that would always make things a bit more complex because when you go through the front door, they take your weapons away, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I believe happens. And that does make the mission just a tiny bit more difficult. And I think it's interesting that, there's so many ways to go about a level. There's no level aside from the absolute final one and the absolute first one where there's a definitive way to play through the level. It really is just a sandbox where they just throw you into the action. You're able just to get in there and just have fun. To me, that is the essence of Hitman. Just not too much story, but it's like 25% story, maybe 20% story, 80% gameplay. I think that's a good mix for a really good Hitman game because the story really is inconsequential because when you're going to a Hitman game, you don't really care about what's happening in the story, at least not for your first playthrough. You're just wondering, okay, what kind of environment am I going to get into? What kind of toys are they going to let me play with? And what exactly can I do with all this stuff when I combine them together in different combinations? I know I said combine and combinations there, trying to sound clever, but it ended up coming off really, really stupid sounding. Almost as stupid as I'm going to act here for some reason. Oh, man. Nevertheless, and I'm going to be saying that phrase again a lot, I suppose, because there's just certain phrases that I just sort of lean into a bit too much. But it's during this part that I forget, I don't have a key. I need to find one of those. Whoopsie doodle. I need to get one of those keys. And this is where everything kind of goes downhill for just a tiny, tiny bit. And here's me grabbing the stun gun. And when I grabbed it, that person out there saw me grab the stun gun and he started freaking out on me. So now I must silence him. And what better way to silence someone but with a silenced weapon? It all works out in the end, And you can't let people be witnesses. Just as everyone's favorite grandfather says, no witnesses. And that person, of course, being Minoru Suzuki, who is the gentlest of all the grandfathers, who has never hurt a soul, but at the same time will not allow any witnesses to leave any area because, that's just how we roll. You don't mess with Minoru Suzuki, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure at least some of that made sense. Hopefully. Probably not. Nothing I say really makes sense. And this is also where we're going to be introduced to another mechanic of optional objectives. And are we going to be completing any of those optional objectives? Looking at the timestamp, I think, not the timestamp, but the length of the video, I think you can see that the answer is probably going to be a no. That is unless, super quick. But yeah, no. Not doing the optional objectives for this level, but there is one where I'll at least attempt to do it if everything goes well, which honestly, it really, really should. Anyways, our whole, plan here is to sedate this agent with a chemical that'll make him appear dead, so that way they take him to the morgue, and then we go to the morgue and we take him out. We take him out of the morgue, so that way he's nice and safe and dandy and all that. And But before we do that, of course, there's at least one target we must silence because, you know, that is our job. We are a hit man. We're not a rescue man. Well, rescue man is somebody else. That's like, you know, Deku, you know, Midoriya's job. That's him. He can be rescue man. You know, I was going to say All Might, but we all know how that turns out at episode 50. I think you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch My Hero Academia. It's a great series, great animated series, just great show altogether. Not counting, you know, animation, just even above that. It's just a really fun series to watch. And now we're going to make our way through the building, through this facility. We spent a lot of time in these cells, but now it's time to see where the patients actually, you know, when they're not in the cells, where they tend to hang out. A nice little resort type area. Kind of unassuming, if you will. Now here's me looking through this map, and once again, one thing that I like about this map is the fact that it's all shown in real time. So in a way that's really helpful because you can see where everyone is at the time they're at that area and you can see where they're moving, but at the same time, unlike a lot of games, it does not pause the game. So if you're thinking, oh, let me pull up the map so that way I can sort of see the lay of the land and get a breather at the same time, you will not. Unless you're in a safe location, pulling up the map will not be helpful for any sort of breather type situation. It's not going to give you any sort of break. So if you want to break, push the pause button. However, when you pull up the map, everything is happening in real time. So if you're getting shot by someone and you think pulling up the map is going to help you, you know, sort of plan an escape, technically it can, but at the same time, you're still getting shot. And 47, you know, doesn't really have the most amount of health, so getting into one of those situations, not the greatest of times, not the funnest of times. You're just going on to avoid those altogether, really. And now it's time to take down a target here, as we slowly follow him, ever so slowly. And yes, sometimes the NPCs will react in this sort of way, where they're like, just sort of suspicious of you, even if there's no particular reason for it. And I believe that was an optional target that just walked by us into the weightlifting area. We could go over there and take him out for a bonus pay, but we don't really need that. The game is honestly generous enough. As long as you got a high enough ranking, the game is relatively generous with its payout to where unless you're going for every single weapon upgrade, you're not really going to need it. And really, you don't need to upgrade every weapon. The only weapon that I ever really upgrade, or I guess two of them, pistol, sniper rifle. I believe I've said this in the past, but those are the only two weapons you ever really need to bring along with you to any mission. And even then, I only bring the sniper rifle along once I unlock the suitcase for it. Not sure when that'll be, but it will happen. I will get that briefcase for that sniper rifle, and it will prove to be very, very helpful in a mission or two. Who knows? Nevertheless, we're going to take this guy out, and the guards will be none the wiser because they cannot put two and two together. They see two men walk in, one man walk out, and all of a sudden their boss, the guy they're supposed to be guarding, is dead.
It's good to have you back.
You know, I guess, you know, they're not exactly the best at putting that together, and that's me making sure that I killed the non-optional target, the mandatory one. You know, there's one upstairs where the best way to kill him is to sabotage his cooking equipment to where it just explodes, and that murders him. We could do that, but, you know, I'm feeling kind of lazy here. I just want to get out of here. I just want to leave this facility. As you can see, I'm kind of lost. It's been a while since I played this level. This is not one of those ones where I have everything, you know, memorized. I'll have the entire level map memorized in my brain, just enough to get through it. And I think that's really the most important part, in my very utmost humble opinion. Just strolling on through this little park. At least it looks like a park to me. And here's me being a real big dummy. Trying to distract the guards, even though there's one looking straight at that building. And here's me realizing, oh wait, I can just walk in. Aren't I a dummy, dummy, dum, dum, dum? And that's literally all I had to do for this mission. Pretty simple stuff, really. Then again, most of these missions, you know, I guess technically aren't all that complex when you really break them down, but there are sometimes a lot of nice moving parts that you can mess around with. And once again, I think that is the appeal of the game. Just being able just to manipulate all these different cogs in this machine to your will, and it's absolutely amazing. And once again, the most important part, no witnesses, not caught on camera. That's all that matters in the end. And as you're about to see, I'm going to still get a generous payout. I still have over $1 million in my account. That's goody gumdrops for, this game. The ghost wanted by police. We are on the square. We are on the level. We're here right now. Right here, right now. Right here, right now. And yes, we are here to stand before the devil. For some reason, the lyrics of that chorus just aren't coming to me, even though I hear it every day at work. Like, I have a boss who plays Squarehammer every day at work, and yet for some reason that chorus there's a part of that chorus that's just not coming to my brain for some reason. Must be microphone anxiety, I guess. Nevertheless, we're going to end with this ironic quote. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.